If there is one natural disaster that we, as a people sitting here, would never want to experience, it would be a tsunami. What happened in 2004, and then again in 2011, still haunts our minds. The scale of devastation these events brought was truly terrifying. Coastal cities, which had existed peacefully for decades, were swept away in the blink of an eye. Those waves not only brought destruction, but also a terrifying warning from Mother Nature. But did you know that throughout history, there have been tsunamis that were unbelievably tall, giant waves as large as skyscrapers, and they destroyed everything in their path? From the United States to Japan, join me as we explore the 5 most devastating tsunamis ever recorded. Before we get started, if you like stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the Challenge of Nature so we can explore more mysteries of the world together. When we think of tsunamis, the first image that comes to mind is often a giant earthquake under the ocean, when the ground moves and pushes up a huge amount of water. But believe it or not, there's another type of tsunami that has nothing to do with earthquakes or any geological phenomenon. That is the mega tsunami, a phenomenon that occurs when there is a sudden displacement of water due to a huge amount of falling material, causing waves as high as never before. Most mega tsunamis occur due to sudden landslides or the collapse of ice sheets. But there was one event in the history of the Earth that not only created a mega tsunami, but also changed the entire planet. 66 million years ago, a giant asteroid, measuring between 6.8 and 50.3 miles in diameter, hit the Yucatan Peninsula, leaving behind a crater called the Chicxulub Impact Crater. The impact was truly devastating, creating a tsunami more than 100 meters high, surpassing anything we could have imagined. The wave was so powerful that some scientists believe it reached as far as Chicago, Montana, or even Canada. But what's even scarier is that the impact didn't just cause a tsunami. It also completely changed the global climate, sending our planet into a severe ice age and ending the age of the dinosaurs. When you look at disasters like the Spirit Lake tsunami, you can see how devastating an inland tsunami can be. But did you know that this was not the only inland tsunami event in history? Just 17 years earlier, in Italy, another inland tsunami caused severe damage in the areas surrounding a reservoir. Located about 100 kilometers north of Venice, shortly after World War II, Italy decided to undertake a number of major construction projects, including the construction of Genoa's famous hydroelectric dam, the Morandi Bridge. However, before the dam was built, there were warnings that the mountain above it, Monte Toc, was unstable. But construction proceeded despite the danger signs. When the dam was completed, locals reported frequent tremors and landslides, but those warnings were ignored. On October 9, 1963, a massive landslide sent rocks, trees, and earth plunging into the reservoir below. The massive impact created a giant wave of water to 150 meters high, which surged over the top of the dam and down into the valley below, completely destroying every village in its path. The tsunami was so powerful that it expelled air with more force than an atomic bomb. Survivors left haunting stories, but most of those in its path did not survive. About 350 families were completely wiped off the map, with more than 2,000 people killed. In the tumultuous history of the planet, few geological events can compare to the devastation wrought by the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens. It was the largest landslide ever recorded on land and the result of a restless volcano. What made this eruption so special was the complete collapse of the northern flank, resulting in a massive pyroclastic flow, carrying with it a devastating force. But there was another disaster that emerged from this collapse, with equally terrifying consequences. As the flank collapsed, it plunged straight into Spirit Lake, a lake located at the foot of the mountain. The massive mass of rock and debris that fell into the lake created an inland tsunami, with a terrifying height of 260 meters above the lake's surface. The lake, which was only about 1,300 acres in size, had doubled in size to 2,200 acres. Such an inland tsunami was a rare and haunting natural phenomenon. The massive wall of water not only engulfed trees and structures, but also carried with it a terrifying destructive force. However, even with the enormous wall of water moving at terrifying speeds, it was still nothing compared to the hot ash cloud from the volcano, bringing death and destruction. The mixture of water and volcanic ash created mudflows, clogged rivers, and left a dark, pathetic scene. Spirit Lake, after the eruption, has gradually recovered, and the water level has now stabilized at about 3,406 feet, monitored and maintained continuously. But it took more than 20 years to reach this state. Japan, a country surrounded by majestic yet challenging nature, lies on the boundary of three major tectonic plates and belongs to the famous Pacific Ring of Fire. It is home to several active volcanoes. One of them is Mount Unzen, located near the city of Shimabara, Nagasaki, on the island of Kyushu, the largest island in southern Japan. The mountain lay dormant for several hundred years before awakening in 1990, and in 1991, it erupted, causing a terrible pyroclastic flow that claimed the lives of 43 people. But the most memorable disaster occurred in 1792. That year, successive earthquakes caused one of the mountain's lava domes to collapse into the sea, creating a mega tsunami that killed more than 14,000 people. It is still considered the worst volcanic disaster in Japan's history. What made this tsunami particularly deadly was that it struck Hyōgo province on the other side of Ariake Bay, and then it turned around and struck Shimabara again. The wave, which reached 100 meters high, traveled far inland, sweeping away everything in its path. Of the victims, about 5,000 died from landslides, another 5,000 from the tsunami, and the rest when the wave returned to strike. Finally, we can't leave out one of the largest tsunamis ever recorded on Earth. It was an event that completely transformed the landscape of Lituya Bay, Alaska, in 1958. Located about 122 miles south of the Canadian border, Lituya Bay is a cold, mysterious, and geologically vulnerable place. On July 9, 1958, a devastating earthquake measuring 7.8 on the Richter scale rocked the area. The quake sent a large amount of rock and soil from the nearby mountains crashing into the bay below, creating an unpredictable landslide. This landslide, along with the mass of material falling into the water, created a giant tsunami that reached 1,720 feet high, the equivalent of a 4-story skyscraper. Miraculously, only 5 people died, as the area was sparsely populated. Most of the people in the area managed to escape the bay before the tsunami hit. The effects of the landslide and tsunami are still evident today. Over 4.5 square kilometers of vegetation were completely destroyed, leaving a large area of bare land that has not been reforested. Even after decades, the forest remains bare, a terrifying reminder of the destructive power of nature, something we should never take lightly. As you look back on what happened, remember that understanding and preparation are the only ways to survive the inevitable disasters. These stories are not just events of the past, but also valuable lessons for the future. Always cherish the peace of the present, because we never know when nature's wrath will strike again. Thank you for sharing these dramatic moments with me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories about the unexpected power of nature. See you on the next journey.